You found The Secret Life of Contracts, where Olga Mack and John Lindsay reveal the good, bad, and ugly of agreements across all industries.
Welcome, everybody. Olga and I are kicking off a new series. We're going to call it The Secret Life of Contracts. And we've got an amazing story. As you can see, look, there's drama already. You see, Olga's going to bring it to the table. There's drama. This was actually her idea in terms of starting with this one. And it's fantastic because, again, as everybody knows, NBA draft taking place right now. NBA finals just finished. Basketball interest is super high. Caitlin Clark is killing it. So everybody wants to talk a little round ball. We're going to do the same thing. So it's called The Secret Life of Contracts. And we're going to open it up by talking about a contract that probably a lot of people, if you're in the sports world, you're familiar with. You could not have not heard this. So, and this was Olga's idea completely, which is amazing to me because I didn't know she was a fan. Maybe she's a huge LeBron fan. Maybe we'll find that out during the conversation. I don't know. I'm more of a Michael fan, but this contract is really, really an amazing opportunity to talk about how important contracts are. So LeBron James, if you don't know, turned down $115 million from Reebok upfront, cash in hand. Olga, let's talk about why we're talking about that happened and where this whole thing went.
For clarity, I'm not taking Michael camp, LeBron camp. Any hot man chasing a ball is good enough for me. But on the point of Secret Lives of Contract, yeah, Nike nearly lost him because guess what? Their contract was too complicated.
And as we know, and as you know, being the lawyer that you are and having looked at hundreds, if not thousands, if not millions of contracts yourself, one small change in these contracts can flip the entire script, right? And so that's exactly what happened here. And we're going to delve into how, we're going to delve into why, we're going to delve into what. So, Olga, let's talk. You kick it off. So here we are. This was an enormous change. The outcome, if you hadn't heard the story yet, is going to be intriguing for you. So let's dive in.
Yeah, so this is in essence the Secret Lives of Contracts, where we decode, how this works and shape the deal and frankly the future. So picture 2003. LeBron is 18. He's about to be a #1 draft pick, and he's like the most anticipated rookie since Jordan. Remember, I'm not taking a side. They're both good to me. They're good-looking man, athletic, chasing a ball.
So that being said, as you said, and there's not many people. Look, I remember this because he's 18 years old. There was not people on ESPN that you could actually watch play basketball games. They were airing his high school basketball game. That's how important he was. They were not doing that for Michael Jordan back in the day. They were only doing that for LeBron. So it is amazing. So let's talk about the contract. Reebok comes to the table with a $115 million contract, including $10 million up front. This is big money now. I mean, this is big money. He's not a rich kid at this point. It's up front. He's got it. He can put it in his pocket the next day. And in comparison, Nike's sitting at $87 million, no upfront money. And this is kind of where the whole thing gets flipped on the script and, if you will, gets stuck in the weeds.
Yeah, deep conversations, like incredibly deep conversations about things like, royalty structures, creative control, branding rights, like on and on, the things that, basically will put you to sleep because it is what I would call a textbook over lawyering.
And, from, again, looking at it from a legal perspective, you understand that completely. From my perspective, it's just a sales guy. What do we want? We want things to move fast. We want that high velocity. We want everything up front. That we want the guy salivating over these contracts, and we want it to be easy, right? And what did Nike do? They didn't make it easy at all, right? So it was problematic in that the landscape was super competitive. We had Reebok, we had Adidas, we had Nike. Nike's thinking long term, but it wasn't really obvious up front in their contract that was the case. And so Reebok's thinking short term. They're thinking he's gonna take this deal because of the upfront money. Look, it's game changing, life changing kind of dollars, but that's not what happened. So how clarity and speed had kind of brought to a screeching halt because some of the wording in the contract in terms of the way Nike did this got missed. So let's talk a little bit about the legal friction that kind of took place and how this whole thing unfolded from there, Olga.
Yeah, the initial contract was not a gift. It was an obstacle. Let's just leave it at that. It created hesitation. It was basically communicating fear. It was not communicating prosperity. It was not communicating opportunity. It was not creating trust. It was creating a legal protection, and mitigating what could possibly go wrong. Basically, the contract was minimizing the loss as opposed to optimizing the upside. And everybody in that room felt it.
So in my world, and you're in a room like that, the what we say is that they buried the value, right? They buried the headline. The buyer who's purchasing this can't see what they're getting. They don't know how they're going to win. And at that point, look, there's money in both pots, right? That's not what they're looking at this point. They're looking at things way, way, way deeper than the money. And in the Nike contract, they can't find it.
Yes, vague royalty terms. Like you really want to show the money. If your opposing side is not seeing the opportunity, yeah, guess what? There's no deal. If they don't enjoy your product, guess what? They won't buy it. If they don't see an opportunity to improve their life, to be a better version of themselves, the deal is not going to be happening. It's that simple. And then, of course, for somebody like LeBron, who is, bigger than life, even at 18, this opportunity to co-create, to be at the table, to really show up as the magnificent self he is, even at the time when he's still developing, those weren't just terms. They were sort of signals of mistrust, and everybody was playing small, not showing up as who they are to the table and mitigating the potential losses, where the focus should be on the upside of how 1+1 will be better together.
Those things matter, right? I mean, if these things were positioned up front and were obvious to them, boy, and they jumped right off the page, and those value terms popped off and said, "Whoa, take me, take me, take me," we wouldn't even have been having this conversation between Reebok and Nike. It would have been Nike all the way, but it was not. Nike had the lead, right? And then all of a sudden, we hit a turning point. So let's talk a little bit about what happened. How in the world did they end up figuring out and illuminating why Nike was a better deal? I think you touched on some of those points. Talk us through what happened.
They brought sexy back. That's all there is to it. They just brought sexy back to contracts. They made royalties transparent. Like when people can see the money, all of a sudden that's all they can focus on. And it's, don't hide it. It's why they're there. And so the contract should be drafted for the amplification of that opportunity. And most importantly, I think they allowed LeBron to show up the man that we saw him become over the course of his career. And he was obviously already there. He's just not fully available for the world to see that. They gave him those performance-based kickers. They drafted for flexibility, for true partnership, for him to grow into it and grow with him, and for him to be the true personality, not just an athlete, but a true personality, because that's what you have to be somebody's brand ambassador. And it's amazing. He saw the value.
That is what saved this ultimate deal. Legal and sales, in this case, not necessarily sales, but those parties came together. They saw a vision and Kumbaya was sung, right? It's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the aftermath. What did this turn out to be? Because obviously this grew into one of the biggest contracts, in Nike history. And they all saw the vision, and Reebok fell off the face of the earth. So this was obviously a huge, I mean, everybody knew this story. So, and now everybody's buying his gear. Heck, I think I have a pair of LeBron socks on right now. So with Nike. So talk about how this thing played out in the aftermath.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's amazing when you stop focusing on leaves and even trees and really focus why you're there. When you look at the contract not as a sort of oh, everything could possibly go wrong, and how am I not gonna collapse because of that? Because the reason you're there is to actually get from that point A to point B and enrich and help everyone involved. And so that fear-based mentality is really holding people back when they show up at the negotiation table, at the contract stage. When they are focused on the leaves and things that could go wrong, guess what? You are not focused on building trust. You are not building what's possible to be together. You are focused on what shouldn't really matter. And because you're focused on that, you're actually much more likely to see that to be a reality. And so that reality is costly. If you create a fear-based reality in your contract, in your negotiation conversation, in your life, let me tell you what it would mean in the context of LeBron. Remember, we're talking about, $90 million contract, a massive contract. It wasn't just massive when he was 18, it's massive today. But that number is still very small because the total value that this contract generated for LeBron, are you ready for this? This is not a small number, because I want you to hold on to your seat and really appreciate that number. This number today is bigger than $1.5 billion in sales.
It's amazing. I mean, again, he's a brand, he's a worldwide brand, and Reebok would have never got this done for him. They weren't looking at it the same way, right? I mean, you hit it on the head. It is absolutely, they were aligned. I mean, right? This was all about being aligned together. And so the reason it became worth over $1 billion is because they both saw the vision. They both believed in one another. They put together a vehicle that allowed them to drive to that point. And he's still going. Look, he is still going.
He's still a man in his prime, in this life expectancy of over 150. I know I'm a little exaggerating, but heck, I'm going to prove it right. I find it very interesting, but when you look at this contract, this is not just a legal instrument. Of course it is, but it's so much more than just sort of a legal instrument. It's more than a contract. It's more than a piece of paper. It's actually a platform. I would call it's a platform, because with a payment schedule and his creative ability to show up as himself, he was not just like a guy holding a ball, occasionally endorsing. He was a co-owner. He was not a commodity. He was showing up as himself. He was a co-creator. And that's what a good contractor allows you to do. It really just it starts with legalese, and it sort of lists the terms, but positioned correctly, it becomes a platform, a springboard, a co-creation mechanism that basically everything just goes nicely, and the pie just grows bigger.
Let's talk about why we're even talking about this to begin with, right? What are we here for? This was a great example of how important that a contract is, not just a piece of paper. It's something that you're both going to build lifetime agreements around, and it symbolizes something so much bigger. Let's talk about how we bring that back to what we do in business.
Yeah, for sure. Contract can either dim your light or amplify who you are. We know that LeBron is a special man, and that contract could have squashed him or could have amplified. And it's clear as day that it was able to amplify him. It allowed him to show up as he is. And I think that's very, very important, because really, contract is not a flex. Contract is just the beginning of the conversation. This sort of desire to control because you fear something is a knee-jerk reaction that will stop you from building exactly what you're set out to do. That ability to build trust and see eye to eye, sometimes you may not even win on dollars, but you win because you have this connection. You have this chemistry. And I know I use this like love language, but honestly, I joke that there, people ask me, how many partners I have, and I give them the definition of partnership. It's one, you either share a tax return with them or a bed, or both. You don't have to do both. But all of that to say is that business partnerships are special. They require chemistry, they require trust, they require connection, they require getting each other. And contract is not a place to control to the point that the person can no longer show up as themselves, that the company is a diluted version of themselves. They need to build trust, and the contract is merely documenting. And that's very, 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 very important. And then, of course, focusing on the value. The value is the reason why they're there. They're not there because they couldn't find themselves a better recreational project. It's not because they don't have a hobby. They are there because they see an opportunity. And that negotiation should be inspiring for that opportunity. They need to come out from the negotiation table thinking that, wow, I thought this was big, and now I know this is going to be big. And more importantly, I have a contract that operationalizes how big this could be. I think, to me, as a lawyer, those are sort of key components of a contract. What about you, John?
Well, again, for us on the sales side of this thing, right? What do we want to look for? And we do this in business too, right? We want things to go fast. We want things to go seamless. We want things to take less time, because cycles mean that that money that LeBron's waiting on is in somebody else's bank account, not his. So, and it's just the same way in business, right? We want shorter sales cycle. We don't want people spending time redlining away and taking their eye off the ball, so to speak, right? We want people to be focused on getting things done. And so their teams got together, obviously, and figured out how to close this deal and make it effective for both people. And then what do we want to do? We want to grow it. And I think you touched on this point, Olga. We want to expand it. This contract, I think one of the cool things about this contract is that expansion was built into this contract. They both saw lifetime value. And maybe they couldn't articulate the whole thing when he's 18, right? But this contract allowed him to become him. You said it earlier. He's an 18-year-old kid. He's going to become a man. How do you script that into a contract, right, where it's so constrictive they can't do that? Well, they didn't try to do that. They believed in him and said, hey, those are the points that we'll figure out. It will be expansive and it will not be restrictive, right? It will grow with him and them, and it will still take into consideration the spirit of the agreement that they set out to forge to begin with. That's amazing, because again, that contract, as you pointed out, Olga, is generating billions of dollars. That's amazing. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. And that's how important stuff like this is, to get it right. When you get it right, wow. When you get it wrong, you mentioned something in a second ago I'll touch on, right? There's two types of partners. Some you share the bed with, some you share the tax returns. And in contracts, look, we've seen it. We've seen it in our personal lives where people don't get it right and their marriage dissolves, and oh gosh, now we're back to some sort of contract splitting up, furniture and trying to cut the dog in half. Or, right, you got business partners that you don't get along with anymore, and gosh, oh my, the agreement wasn't written right. Now we're trying to figure out how to dissolve an organization. Getting this right is critical. It's just absolutely critical. And so let's talk a little bit about the takeaways, because this is all about what we do going forward. We're in business. You and I don't know about you, but I suck at basketball, and I'm guessing you're probably not much better than I am. So
you never know. You never know. You never know.
You might have to do a game.
But I do want to know, and you know what? I'm not going to challenge you to a duel in basketball because I know you will lose. So I don't want to embarrass you.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Don't take my money.
No, I'm really bad at it, but I am really good at making you feel like you will lose. Anyway, that aside, what is your number one takeaway, John?
Well, I think for me, it's, the more money, at least up front, where it looks really, really attractive and enticing, is just, sometimes a bait and switch. It's not at all what we really want. It doesn't really deliver long term. And if we're in this for something that is much, much greater than in the moment, then money is not what this is all about whatsoever. You hit the point, is trust. So talk to me about where that fits, because I think that's a much, much bigger variable in these contracts than money is.
Yeah, trust is how we show up as ourselves. I mean, absolutely. I agree with you, John. So true. I also want to bring one more concept that we usually use with money, this interest of compounding that we always talk about in the context of saving. But we actually should expand that in the context of trust. Trust is one of those things, when you build it layer by layer, at some point it becomes exponential and just becomes so big. It holds you and allows you to take creative risks, and allows you to show up there for your business partners, and allows you to do things that are unprecedented and do bigger than big. And I really love that when people approach contract as this opportunity to build trust and just do amazing things they wouldn't be doing otherwise. And I think what allows it is showing up as yourself, accepting your partner as they are, meeting them where they are, trusting that they have the best interest for the partnership, documenting this in the contract, and then living and breathing it in the everyday life. That gonna snowball to not just value, but unprecedented things, innovation that you haven't seen before, the value that you haven't even considered. Because the thing about, as you said, 18-year-old LeBron could not imagine what kind of man he will be at 40 or 50 or whatever, but he trusted that he can curate as the past unfolds what allows him to show up as himself and add value to this partnership. And the partnership, the regular structure of that partnership, allowed for life to happen and trusted him to co-curate the right opportunities that would help him, that would help the partnership. It aligned, it created a platform of trust. And in the end, I think we can confidently say not only is he an amazing athlete, he is an amazing entertainer. He changed the course of history of sports. He changed the way we view brands, how we relate. I mean, he's an innovator. That's who he is. He's so much more, even though I like the, good-looking man chasing balls. He's so much more than that. And that is even more interesting to watch. That is my big takeaway.
Yeah, I'll use a quote that you penned, which is, and it ties right into your point about the alignment, Olga. It's when you draft for alignment, you don't just get deals done. And this is the key part, you build something worth staying in. And I think this is true in business, it's true in life, it's true in everything, right? If you've done this right and you've got this contract right, you suggested it. He started 18, he's still going now. There was room to grow in there. It's worth staying in. All parties are happy. I mean, that's exactly what this is all about, right? We're not building these things to slap people on the wrist and tell them when they're wrong, right? We're building people to reward something that's really worth staying in and growing. That's amazing. I mean, that you said it best.
I can't wait to have another conversation with you about the secret lives of contracts.
Well, I think we're because I think we're gonna tee these up, and I don't know how frequently we're gonna be able to pull them off because you're really busy. But the next
it's now my fault.
It's absolutely your fault. I'm free all the time for you. You know that. The next time, you guys got to tune in, because the next time on The Secret Lives of Contracts, what happens when the fine print destroys $1 billion partnership? Now we're going to talk about the reverse cycle. So join us for that one. You don't want to miss it. Olga, how much fun was this doing this together for our inaugural episode?
I may take you up on this unlimited availability you offered. You're on, friend. You're on.
Rock on. All right. We are over and out. That's the end. Thanks for tuning in.